Do you need help with scaling and marketing your home service company? What's up, blue collar business owner? Welcome back to the Blue Collar Prosperity Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Masker, where we focus on helping guide you to have a prosperous blue collar business. Today, we have with us Michael Johnson. Michael is a veteran entrepreneur and HVAC industry leader who grew his Fayetteville, North Carolina-based business into a seven-figure success. With over 20 years of experience, he now coaches home service companies on scaling, marketing, and sales. Known for his engaging insights and focus on customer experience, Michael empowers entrepreneurs to build thriving, community-focused businesses. So that is Michael Johnson. Welcome, Michael. Thanks so much for being here. What's going on today?
Hey, nothing much. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for being here. Like we talked about before the show, this is definitely the geographically closest person I have interviewed on the podcast. So Michael's probably a little bit less than an hour from me down in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So that's always exciting. So Michael, why don't we get started by really just kind of giving listeners into that, look into that 20-year journey of, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So I landed in North Carolina at the age of 18 years old. I'm originally from California. I'm from Los Angeles. But I'm a Carolina kid at heart at this point because I've been here since I was 18, and it's been, I don't even know if I want to say how many years. People are going to start calculating my age here. But I came here from the military with all intentions to go back. I was stationed right here at, most people know the name Fort Bragg. It's recently changed to Fort Liberty. It's the largest military base in the country by population. We have one in Texas called Fort Hood that's bigger landmass. But we have a lot of soldiers here. Big military culture. I came here and did a 6-year term in the Air Force. So what happened with me was when I got out of the military and I got married, then there was a big decision. Do I move back home? Because now there's two homes. There's my childhood home and then there's my wife's childhood home. So we decided, hey, we have roots down here. We stayed here and decided to get out of the military. And the decision was, what do we do? Well, what job do I do? So when I was in the Air Force, I was doing heating and air conditioning. In addition to some other things, some things didn't translate as well. There was some bomb lifts, putting bombs on airplanes. Not too many jobs you can get doing that. Yeah. So I decided HVAC, went to Fayetteville Tech. We have a trade school about a mile from where I'm sitting. Went there for a couple of years, went on my own, worked for a company. It didn't take me very long to realize that that really wasn't for me. So plus there were some bills I had to get paid and they weren't paying me enough at all. So I went out on my own, and 20 years later, I'm sitting here on your show talking about it.
That's awesome. Love the journey. Love that you stayed in North Carolina. I'm a big fan of North Carolina. Like you, like most people in North Carolina. Most people that live in North Carolina, if you guys don't know, we're actually not from here. So especially in the last 15, 20 years, a ton of people have moved to North Carolina. I moved from Chicago originally. I'm originally from Michigan. So a whole bunch of transplants down here, which is exciting for growth and business and opportunity. So let's dive into your expertise. You've been running your own HVAC company for a long time. Obviously, you're also helping other people, get to where they want to go, mainly, especially focusing on scaling, marketing, and sales. So in the last couple of years, it's obviously been a little bit harder getting customers. In COVID, it was super easy. Like there was more work than people to deliver. So you didn't really have to be that good at answering the phone or delivering a customer experience or paying for ads. It was like there was enough for everybody. But now it's changed a little bit. So one of the things you're big into, Michael, is getting customers without ads. Really building kind of a community-based organic business where people just know you as the go-to person. What are some tips around there that our listeners can take away to start put in place in their business?
Yeah, so a couple things, because getting customers without spending a lot of money it's almost a philosophy. It's a mental state. And you brought up something that ties into that is a lot of trade businesses have started in the past, I would say 10 years. There's a lot of new companies, and an insane amount of them started around COVID, right? So there's a lot of people that started companies because everything was shut down. They started realizing, hey, this career field is non-essential. And a lot of electrical companies, HVAC companies, plumbing companies just popped up during COVID, which is great. There's a lot of attention on the trades, more jobs. But the issue is a lot of them came in during those good times, those good years. And then once it started dropping off, when people started returning to work, they're not home as much, they're out and about, the jobs started tapering down. So if you combine companies that started during those good times and companies that started in the age of social media, there's a lack of understanding of what grassroots marketing is. Because if the clients are coming to you because of COVID and they're all home and they're starting to point out things, or if all you know is just social media or running Google ads, we didn't have that in 2004, right? There was no social media in 2004. Facebook was new, MySpace was new, but it was too new to get customers on. Facebook ads obviously didn't exist if Facebook didn't really exist. Google ads were, I mean, if you remember Google ads 20 years ago, it's just ridiculous. So a lot of that is a lost art. That whole back in the 50s and 60s, which predates me, right? I feel like I have to say that. But those days when you had to knock on doors or actually meet people, go to these Chamber of Commerce meetings and meeting people and forging really strong relationships, getting access to their network of friends and family, that's a lost art because we became introverts in COVID, right? And then when you start bringing up things like, hey, go to your network meeting, get behind the camera, film videos, post them, pass out brochures. I have these brochures that we pass out all the time. You hear a lot of people say, well, I'm an introvert, or I don't want to knock on doors because I don't want to irritate people, or I don't want to put cards on cars because somebody might curse me out. All of that is coming from a place of we didn't have to a couple of years ago, right? But those kind of going out and networking, going out and actually meeting people face to face is very powerful. And that's where the grassroots non-paid customer relationships start, from that mindset of actually you have to leave your house, right? So that's where it starts for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. And I had Dan Antonelli on the show a while ago, and he was talking about being 5 Mile famous. And to your point, it's hard to be 5 Mile famous as nobody knows who you are. And they
Yeah.
they might see a van here or there, they might see a social media post here or there, but like people still do business with people. And when something goes wrong with somebody's HVAC, plumbing, electrical, usually the first thing they do is they go ask their neighbors. They ask their friends,
Mhm.
hey, who fixed your air conditioner when it went out? And they're like, oh man, I see this guy all the time. I see him at events. I see him at the
Yep.
restaurant, whatever it is. It's not like, I don't know, go to Facebook and find somebody, right? Like we don't really do that unless it's like a 5 alarm emergency where then we just open up Google and then we hit an LSA ad. Many times it's through that referrals, through those networks, through becoming somebody. And I know you mentioned it, and we mentioned in your intro, is really a community focused business. Like you want to be the go-to air conditioning guy in Fayetteville, North Carolina. They
Mhm.
know Michael, they know Michael's team, they know Michael's brand, and they also know they're supporting somebody that owns a local business. And I think
Mhm.
that's a big part of it too, because I mean, you and I probably everybody sees it. If you have a neighborhood Facebook group, they're like, "Hey, who's your go-to plumber that's not a big company, that's a mom and pop, that's locally owned, all that kind of stuff." So some really good insight there, Michael. I appreciate that. So let's kind of go down the customer journey now that we've got their attention, whether it's through Chamber of Commerce, BNI, just being a part of the community, volunteering, participating. Now we actually need to acquire these people because
Mhm.
they're calling multiple people. That's not as urgent as it was 3 or 4 years ago. You didn't just have to answer your phone to get the sale. What are some things that you have found in your career, coaching, running your own business, to improve our ability to acquire customers?
So a couple things, right? And we hear a lot of this buzzwords, like I said, BNI, Chamber of Commerce, those kinds of things. There's a certain way when you're talking about acquiring customers, it's sort of built on relationships, right? So I'll give you an example. I went to my local Chamber of Commerce meeting yesterday morning. They do it once per month on Tuesday, and they all meet in this big room. They all have breakfast. It's a bunch of businesses, and they're all passing out cards to one another. And then when the breakfast ends at 9, they don't see each other until next month on Tuesday. That's not networking, okay? The idea is to take these relationships out of that networking group and connecting with them on a continual basis. And what that means is if I go to a networking group and I see you, so I believe you were in electrical at one
Yep.
point, right? Yeah. So if I go to a networking group and I see you and I find out you're an electrician, I'm going to go up to you and say, I'm not going to say, here's my card. And if you refer someone and then I don't ever hear from you again, I'm going to tell my technicians, hey, this is our partner electrician. If you're in a house and you see something, give them this card and tell them to call this electrician and tell them to let them know that we referred them. And what that's doing is that's building a relationship with you. I'm building a partnership with you, showing my good faith, my goodwill. And now we're becoming referral partners because it's very hard to continue to get referrals from someone and not want to reciprocate that back, right? And my customers, they love me, they trust me, they know me. So when I say, call Paul, they don't Google, right? The same with you. Now I've created a referral partner with your company. Your customers that already know you've already done the work. You've already given them 5-star service. You've already worked with them for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. When you or your tech say, oh, this is the company that we refer HVAC, I already have them. I don't have to build it. You built it, you referred it, and now I grab that. So there's a lot of tricks like that that you can do.
Yeah, and I love that, Michael, because whenever we're in somebody's home, it's inevitably going to come up. Hey, Michael, do you happen to know a good landscaper? Hey, we're looking to put a deck on. Do you know a good carpenter guy? Or hey, we really want to get new windows. Do you know a window and door company? And it's like if you have that resource, now you're more valuable to them too. So they're more likely to use you again. It's like, man, anytime I need something, I actually just call Michael. He's our HVAC guy, but I also know that he's got somebody that he can trust send to our house, whether it's a roofer, whether it's windows, whether it's doors, whether it's garage doors, all that kind of stuff. And I feel that's kind of a lost art. Like you said, it's been lost because we believe technology is taking over. And at the end of the day, people are still doing business with people that they know, like, and trust. And you're not going to build that it's going to be a lot harder to build that trust through the internet versus just doing business with people who are humans and we treat them like humans and build that relationship. So
1,000%.
you're also big on, now that we have this customer, as you know, a lot of times we get the customer, then we go on to the next one, on to the next one. We kind of forget about all this blood, sweat, and tears we use to get this customer. But what are some tips, tricks, tactics that you have, systems, processes to then retain these customers so that way the next time they need somebody, they call us. We don't have to spend any marketing dollars, which is great. And we continue to increase that lifetime value.
Yeah. So there's another old school thing that a lot of people forgetting about is that old-fashioned email newsletter. Do you remember that back in the day, everyone was trying to get you on their email newsletter? They were going out left and right. That's a lost art for people because text message marketing, which is incredibly powerful, but it doesn't stand alone, right? So what we do in our company is we combine text message marketing and email newsletter to do a constant drip without constantly selling, right? So if I send you a text message once a week, then I'm texting you 4 times a month, right? That can be a lot because you're noticing, man, I'm getting a text a week. But if I send you a text message one week and an email the next week, you tend to not notice that I'm sending you multiple. So I'll send you a text, hey, this is the winter storm is coming in. We just want to let you know that we'll be out and about, blah, blah, blah. And then next week I send you an email about how to prepare your house for the winter storm. So you can combine these mediums, but what I believe in, it's almost like Gary Vee, this famous social media guy. He says, jab, 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 right hook. It's very important that when you're connecting with customers, so like you said, I go and I do a repair in January of 2024, and then I just wait for them to magically call me sometime next year. That's no good, right? Because they don't remember you. They don't remember. I'd have to scratch my head to think about what vacations we went on last year. And those were big events in our family. Do you think I'm going to remember the electrician that came 12 months ago? I'm going to Google it. So what we do is we continually drip market them, but we don't sell them in the drip marketing constantly Because if I'm constantly messaging you, hey, we got this deal, hey, we're doing this, hey, we're doing UV lights, hey, we're doing this, you're going to unsubscribe. But if I'm drip marketing you and saying, hey, the winter storm is coming on Wednesday, make sure that you check this, 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 and this, so that your pipes don't freeze or so that your car doesn't get damaged by hail, or you're not going to unsubscribe from that. Not only that, I'm generating goodwill in your mind because I'm helping you, right? So there's a word, it's called heuristics, where everybody, we get a feeling associated with every person in our network, right? So when Paul Masco messages me, there's a certain feeling that comes along with it. Like, oh, hey, I remember this guy, he's a good guy. There's some people that text us and we get that feeling like, oh, right? So when you're helping drip marketing and you're helping out, you're teaching, you're talking about that, people start to get this goodwill feeling, and it may not even be conscious. So that when you finally send that message about, hey, we're doing service plans or we're doing electrical panel checks, there's a good feeling associated with that because you've been drip marketing them helpful information. That's that jab, 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 right hook.
Yeah, I love it. And it's so true because we can provide so much value. And a lot of times I talk to companies and they're like, well, I don't know what to write in that newsletter. To me, the easiest thing is, like you said, the seasonality. What would we recommend, or what are we doing to our own home at this time? So I have a landscaper that we use, and we get an email once a month. Hey, Paul, it's February. And these are the the shrubs that you want to prune. These are the ones not to prune because they're budding and you don't want to kill the flowers. And it's literally all the things you can do yourself. And then it's like, and if you don't want to do it, you can call us. But it's like providing all the value, just like you said, check this, check this, check this,
Yep.
be prepared. When you get that email, you're not like unsubscribe because they're just going to try and sell us their latest plan. It's wow, they're actually providing value. And one of the things you mentioned, I don't know if you've read this book, Michael, but for anybody out there, The Pumpkin Plan by Mike McCallowitz is a great book. And he actually talks about when your phone rings or you get text messages, if it's from customers and it's a crush, it means you get excited when it's the same feeling. You get excited when you see their text message. And if it's someone you don't get excited about, it's probably someone you shouldn't be doing business with, whether it's a referral partner. He calls it the crush and cringe. He's like, if that person calls you or texts you, what is the internal feeling you get right when you see that name? And if it's a cringe, you probably shouldn't be dealing with that person anymore. And that's what people feel if it's like you just keep bombarding them, buy this, buy
Yep.
this, buy this. Then you get to the point of like all they do is put stuff on sale. I don't even know what the right price is. So that's really good insight. Email newsletter, do it once or twice a month. The key is to just get started. So now let's kind of look at the pricing and sales of things. This is another big thing that you focus on because me as a CFO, I realize that most people actually don't have a pricing model. They just kind of guess of what should we charge to put in the thermostat, or what should we charge to put in an outlet, or what should we charge to put in a sink. Like they really don't have a mathematical reason behind their pricing. And that's where I see them getting a lot of trouble. And then it's really hard to sell because we can't stand behind it because we don't really know why it's priced that way. So what are some of the things we can do to start to fix our pricing and sales process, based on your experience?
So on my experience is you need to first, before you ever get down the road of saying, I need to understand how much something should cost or how much I should charge, that's almost like the end of the formula. You need to understand your costs first. If you don't understand your cost, you can never price correctly, because pricing is not based on what your market is taking, right? I don't care what other HVAC companies or other electrical companies are charging in my town. It has nothing to do with me. And I definitely shouldn't care what companies are charging, and they're not even in my state. People go on Facebook groups, say, how much are you guys charging for this? If this guy is in New York City and you're in somewhere in Alabama, you cannot compete with that. Likewise, if you're in New York City and some guy down in somewhere in Alabama, it's more rural or something, and you're trying to match with him. So you have to price based on your costs. You understand how much are you spending on the materials, how much are you spending on the labor, and how much are you spending on the overhead in your company? Because every dollar that you make some of that dollar goes to overhead. And that's what a lot of people forget. So they'll price these jobs. They'll say, okay, I bought these wires. I bought this panel. I got 2 guys on the job. I'm spending this much on their labor. This is my margin. When you start taking the other things out of that, you're losing. So I would say the journey has to start on understand your cost first, and then you're getting closer and closer to the proper pricing.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Michael. Me as a CFO, I look at people's books every day, and a lot of times they don't even have their field labor. And anybody listening to this, if you open up your P&L right now and your field labor is not part of cost of goods sold, you need to talk to your bookkeeper and get that up there, because that's the biggest, that material. Those are the 2 biggest drivers of what does it cost to deliver this, and then how much do we need to make to cover all of our overhead. And your overhead's going to be your marketing spend, all the people in the office, and then obviously everything else that goes with running your business on a day-to-day basis. So it's so true. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, because I go through this process a lot with my clients. We figure out their pricing. We know exactly what they need to charge for everything, and they can start to build a price book. But then they say, I can't sell that for this price.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get people to buy in, whether it's the technicians, the owners, the service managers, buy in on this is what we charge and this is the reason we have to charge it?
I think so. 2 things. One, if your prices are higher, okay, well, let's go back. One, you don't have a choice because the numbers, right? So the numbers don't lie. If this is what the numbers are saying you need to charge, you need to charge. Okay. But after that, you have to understand that the higher your prices are, the less jobs you actually have to convert, right? So if I'm super low undercharging and everyone is saying yes, and I raise my price, I can get less people to say yes and make more money and have less customers to have to please, less trucks to run around everywhere. But this is what I tell people is if you're just so terrified, and I've sat in this seat before, but if you're so scared that if I charge this, I'm going to lose customers, people are going to start giving me 1-star reviews, I'm going to go out of business, then out of the next 5 jobs, how about you just price one of them at a time, right? Go price them that, and I guarantee you won't get the reaction that you expect. So I tell them, hey, you don't have to jump in the ocean without a life vest, right? You don't have to just charge the price. Just go try it. Just price one job, go try it. And most of the time what happens is you realize you don't get the reaction you thought, because guess what? They already knew you were too underpriced. Your customer already knew that. You're the only one that didn't know that. They've called around before. So when you give the price, it's in line with everyone else, right? And they like you, they trust you, they know you. It's really based on the customer's emotions and the customer's feeling of safety, the customer's feeling of trust. There's a good amount of customers that they care more about that than the price anyway. Right. And that's my love language, the 5 love languages by Gary Chapman. There's one love language that's not in there. My love language is don't waste my time. So I don't have a lot of time in my day. So when I call an electrician, I want him to be on time. I want him to do the job. I want him to do it right. I don't want to meet him again tomorrow because it didn't work. I don't care if it's expensive. And those are the clients you're going to start getting when you start selling on value and doing your price right.
Man, I love that, Michael. And it goes back to everything we were just talking about of becoming that expert, becoming 5 Mile Famous, building all of the value ahead of time. When you do build all that value, to your point, our ideal customer, we go back to the speed, quality, and price thing. Our ideal customer doesn't care about price. They want you there quickly. They want you there on time, and they want it done right the first time. If those are your ideal customers, price is irrelevant by the time because like you said, their time is so valuable. It's like, I don't want to get 3 estimates. I don't want to go through this process again. You've nailed everything since you've been here. So now I know you're going to do really good work on my plumbing system because everything else has been amazing. Whatever the price is, cool, do it. And then the next time you go to that customer, they don't even it's like slam dunk. Michael, I want you to do this, 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 and this. Where do I sign? When are you going to be done? Right? We're not ripping people off. We're charging what we need to charge, like Michael said, to cover our labor, material, and overhead to have a healthy business. So that way, the next time that person does call, we're still in business, because if we don't charge enough, we're going to be out of business. If we charge too much, then we're not going to have any customers. We're going to be out of business as well. So the free market works really well. So Michael, this has been awesome. A ton of value. Before we go, though, I want to get one more piece of insight from you. I ask this question to everybody. We got a lot of things to do. There's so many things we can do, but what is one thing our listeners could do within the next 24 hours to start to move their business forward in the right direction?
I would say the first thing that you can do, okay, we already talked about price. Raise your prices if you haven't, right? So it's probably the quickest way to generate profit is to price properly. The second thing is to engage your customer list. You already have customers. Most people say, well, I need to get customers and I need to get, chances are you already have thousands of them. Even small one-man companies I've seen, they have 1,500 to 2,000 customers in their list. Reach out to them. Make it automated. There's software out there. I mean, the level of software versus price has come down to so much in the last 15 years. Some of these softwares you can get to engage customers and you can spend $200 or $300 a month. That would have been $3,000, $4,000 a month 10 years ago. So engage them, reach out to them. And I'll tell you a story real quick, just to kind of, if people can relate to it. I remember when I was in my van and I was just a one-man show and my van barely even ran. I didn't have the money to fix it and I was waiting for calls. I remember I got so fed up one day that I told myself, I am not going to stop calling my customers until I make $1,000 in sales. So I opened my customer list. It was on paper at the time. And I called. And at the time I was doing services for $100. And I said, hey, you haven't had a service in a while. And 10 people. And I stopped. I sold $1,000 of work in 30 minutes. And that's when I realized the money that I need to feed my family and to grow my business is not out there in the ether somewhere. It's in my customer list. So number one, raise your prices. Number two, engage that list that you already have.
There you go, guys. So simple, yet so few people do it. Get out there today, make your prices right, and engage with the customers you work so hard to get in the first place. Michael Johnson, thanks again for coming on the show, sharing your journey, and providing a massive amount of actionable advice, wisdom, and insight for all the blue-collar business owners out there as we continue our journey to prosperity. Before we sign off, though, Michael, where can listeners go to keep in touch with you and learn more about what you got going on?
Go on YouTube or just go to Google and type Michael James Johnson HVAC. If you put that in there, if you put Michael Johnson, you're going to be learning about the Olympics and track and field and everything. So if you put that James in there, Michael James Johnson HVAC, and I'll come up.
There you guys go. Michael James Johnson HVAC. Check him out. YouTube, Google. Google is YouTube. Put it in there and get all the value that Michael is putting out there in the world. Michael, thanks again for coming on the show today. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It was awesome.
And before we go, as you know, there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to creating consistent positive cash flow. However, the journey starts with making sure you are priced right so you can have a growing and more profitable business. I've created a super easy to use pricing calculator for everyone in the trades. You will no longer have to guess what you should charge. You'll no longer have to call around your competition and see what they charge. This calculator is easy to use and will provide you confidence and clarity that you're actually priced right. It also comes with a step-by-step PDF guide and a video walkthrough. So head on over to thebluecollaradvisors.com/price. thebluecollaradvisors.com/price to download it today and so you can start implementing it tomorrow. Until next time, remember, what got you here won't get you there. If you are ready for different results, it's time to start doing things differently.